Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
You're listening to Roundtable. I'm Steve Hatherley today with Yushan and Fei Fei. Coming up, researchers are now claiming that regular museum visits and theater outings could slow down how fast your body ages. On paper, it sounds like a dream prescription. No pills, no gym memberships required, only culture. But when you dig into the data a little bit, and we will, the picture gets a little murky. Is it the art that's protecting your cells, or is it the walking and the socializing and the cognitive engagement that come along for the ride? Our podcast listeners, that is you, can find us at Roundtable China on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget, we love to hear from you too, so send your emails our way, send your voice notes our way. And here's how you do it, roundtablepodcast at qq.com. Once again, roundtablepodcast at qq.com. What if your next anti-aging treatment isn't a supplement, isn't a fitness tracker, and isn't an expensive skincare product? What if it was just buying a ticket? A new study has come up with a rather surprising connection between cultural activities and how quickly our bodies age. And suddenly, going out to see a show doesn't just sound like entertainment anymore, it sounds suspiciously like a health recommendation. But before you start telling your boss that your afternoon at the museum is actually part of your medical treatment, there are some pretty interesting questions to answer. Why might going to the theater or a museum be good for you? Is it the art itself or everything that comes with it? Getting out of the house, meeting people, talking with those people, walking around and giving our brains something to chew on. And what happens when we look at China specifically, where museums and live performances are attracting huge and increasingly diverse audiences? Why do some cultural activities seem to be booming while going to a traditional play can still feel like a rather unusual weekend plan, especially for many young people? There's a lot of questions to talk about here. I mean, it seems... Fei Fei and Yushan, like a very loose connection, doesn't it?
Yeah. Going to the theater or museum
is an anti-aging thing.
Yeah, it sounds like something very stigmatized marketing slogan, but it is true because it comes from a new study published in the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health. They suggest that older adults who are more culturally engaged, going to the cinema, visiting museums or galleries, or attending theaters, concerts, and the opera, tend to have a younger physiological age. That means that they analyzed data from close to 1,900 adults aged 50 and above who participated in an aging study, and they compared their culture participation with 10 physical and physiological measures, including things like blood pressure, lung function, BMI, grip strength, walking speed, and they found that people engaged in cultural activity at least every few months had an average physiological age of 66.9. That compares with 69.9 among those with lower levels of cultural engagement. So roughly 3 years of differences.
I'm still not convinced that you could draw a line from A to B here, but they did adjust for factors including income and employment and chronic health conditions. Every 1 point increase in the cultural engagement score was associated with a 0.085 year or about 31 day lower physiological age. So they did. Those were some of the questions that I had. What about pre-existing health conditions? What about, are these wealthy people? Are they not wealthy people? Are they working? Are they not working? The reason I say working are they physically active every single day? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at least some of those questions were answered here. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you go out and you cancel your gym membership today.
Because it's an observational study.
Yeah, I don't exactly understand what an observational study is, but apparently it just shows an association. It's not a definition or a proof that going to the theater literally makes your body younger. I mean, it's entirely possible that healthier people are simply more able, whether it's physically or financially or socially, to go out to wherever they want, museum or theater, like you name it. But there can be such a linkage between people's participation socially and culturally speaking and their speed of aging.
So, yeah, it's not like Shakespeare will replace your deadlift
Oh no.
or something like that. But the reasons perhaps around it, they suggest, are more about what you're experiencing when you go out to a museum or go out to a theater.
Yeah. Think about what happens when you go to such a place. For example, go to a theater. For me, for example, I always have to leave the house or leave my workplace, drive over or take the subway over. That's a whole trip that you have to either try to map out the route yourself or be surrounded by a whole lot of people riding in the subway cart. And then you might meet someone, a friend or not. For my case, I never really get accompanied to watch any shows, but then you get to sit in a room full of other people. You listen to the performance or you watch the performance carefully, that you follow up with the story and react emotionally. And then later you might want to, for my case, post something about how you feel about it on social media and just see if there's any agreements or disagreements. So it's a whole process that you're interacting directly or indirectly with other people.
Yeah, and a museum, you talked about the theater, but a museum would work in a similar way, right? Because, you leave the house, you get there, you walk around, you're looking at things that are unfamiliar to you. You might be reading information about the things that you're looking at. You're triggering your memory there, things that you'll probably remember. You might ask some questions. So it's kind of the same experience, I suppose, or at least a little bit similar.
Yeah, going to the cinema, going to theater, watching an opera, going to a museum, or just sitting there listening to some music. At least you have that social connection, even though you may be attending these performances alone, but you still will be around people, and that is very essential when, especially considering people who are getting older. Social isolation can be a very serious problem. So going to a concert, to a museum, gives them a reason to leave the house, meet people, not only even friends, maybe acquaintance, maybe just a few chat with the workers in those facilities, and maintain that even loosened social relationship.
Yeah, mental health and social connections are really closely connected to your overall health. So, social connections with other human beings is an important one. But also, I would assume an important one is the fact that you are stimulated mentally. Your brain is very active. You're watching whatever you're watching. You're thinking about it. You're reacting. It's a good workout.
It's usually a 4-hour, 5-hour, or half a day kind of journey that your mind will have to keep up with everything that's going on around you. But imagine that same half a day, just sitting at home watching TV or scrolling on your phone. The amount of impact cost in your brain is totally different.
And also the planning. When you buy that ticket, it's a very big promise and commitment. You need to plan your trip. You need to check how long is for the commute. And then, of course, for any of this kind of stage performance, you need to be there earlier and you need to plan, you need to schedule, you need to plan your meal, you need to plan your transport and then the way back and maybe activities later afterwards. So you can see a lot of the brain works going on for going to a theater.
And we're talking about doing this regularly too, right? Well, let's look at some numbers, shall we, to see how popular, here in China, how popular these types of theaters and museums are. By the end of 2025, we'll start with museums. China had almost 7,200 registered museums. And the cool thing about those is that 91% of them offered free admission, which is a great way to attract customers. Makes me wonder about the remaining 9% and why they're not doing it.
Private ones, perhaps.
Privately owned. In 2025, those museums received 1.5 billion visits. They also held around 45,000 exhibitions and more than 580,000 educational activities. Now, if we think about that, 1.5 billion museum visits in a single year, it doesn't mean 1.5 billion people going. It might be, some people going several times, but still it shows that museums are still a major thing for people to do. It's a major activity for families to take part in.
Increasingly so. And also when we're talking about those educational activities, 580 plus thousands of them. I'm thinking about a lot of these activities, not only for children, but also for adults. There can be hands-on experiences in making some of the intangible culture, heritage elements. Or I think I was enrolled into one of the workshops held by one of the museums in Beijing to make paper from scratch. And they offer you some materials. Of course, we're not talking about cutting down bamboos or trees, but they offer you some material and you start to learn how to put them in the water and how to filter those fibers and making them into paper, and then you can learn how to draw on them. So adults are involved, elderly involved, and children are involved. And that, I think, is one of the things making museums more fun than before. It's not just being toured around, reading all the titles and notes and then leave.
Yeah, and the same is happening with live performances too. In the first half of 2026 alone, China's commercial performing arts market generated more than 30 billion yuan in box office revenue. And that's a rise of over 9% year on year, with almost 99 million audiences visits. And it isn't just for concerts. The market includes theater, dance, traditional opera, musicals, immersive performances, and many other different formats too. And in fact, the audience is becoming increasingly young. Data from the China Association of Performing Arts show that people aged 25 to 34 accounted for over 47% of the theater consumption in 2025. So nearly half. And musical theater, immersive performances, and stand-up comedy are particularly popular among young people these days. So, if previously Peking opera or folk opera were like unique just to the elder generation, nowadays young people are coming up with so many different innovative and fun ideas of what theater means to them.
Do you see on social media, on Chinese social media, do you see a lot of opera or plays or what have you, theatrical performances marketed on social media to young people?
Yeah,
You
totally.
do.
Everywhere.
That's really interesting. There was a report from a producing group in, I think it was 2024. I found this on playbill.com because I was curious to know, are young Americans interested in going to the theater? Are they going or are they not? This is what they found from that report. 67% of millennials and Gen Z are Broadway curious. That means that they're interested in going to theatrical performances and they want to learn more about the industry. But here's the reason that they don't really attend, is because they aren't aware of the shows being offered.
Yeah.
Because there's no advertisement for these types of performances on social media. And that's why young people don't even know that they're out there for them to see.
Oh, yeah. I used to have this question as well. There was, for example, I think a couple of years ago, Hamilton came performing in Beijing. And I only start to know about that when Hamilton wrapped up its tour in China.
Yeah, several years ago, it's this similar case here in China too. We don't have enough channels to get aware of information like that. And if you're in the circle, you know, but if you're out of the circle, there's no way. And people try to get in the circle, but they don't know how.
Yeah, so I follow all of the theater's WeChat official account, try to get ahead of what's happening.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you were a Hamilton Hamilton fan.
I didn't know that because I didn't watch Hamilton. I just want to go, but I didn't
end up getting there.
Yeah. But now I recently went to another musical called Matilda in Beijing, and they are actively asking audience to promote their shows on platforms like Xiaohongshu.
Yeah.
They have this notice after the show, like you're welcome to share photos and clips of the performance on Xiaohongshu, and this is the hashtag. And so that's why when you go to Xiaohongshu, you check those hashtags, you can see all the shared posts. And that's also one of the reasons I know about Matilda in the first place.
Yeah, well, that's what the survey results said, is that this needs to change. In the United States, 37% said that they haven't seen live theater promoted on their social media feeds. And when asked what ideas would make Broadway more relevant to them, 43% said lower ticket prices, but 25% said advertise on social media. But yeah, those ticket prices can be pretty expensive. One thing, though, in Western culture that's very common, and I'm curious to know if it's common, I think it is growing here in China, is kind of like a performance plus tourism thing, like a bundle.
Yeah.
So people will use their vacation time to travel to another city to check out a concert, and they'll use that as their holiday time. That's happening here too, isn't it?
It should be happening to me next month, but unfortunately my concert got canceled
Oh,
last
no.
minute. But still, we're going to that city that we've already booked for and hoping to have a concert there for, to join a concert there for. But yeah, that is the trend here. The performance is there, and sometimes after you book the ticket platform will stay in line with tourism platform to recommend other local tourism spot for you. Sometimes it comes as a bundle ticket so that you can get in discounts. So it's totally a trend here in China. In 2025 alone, large-scale performances generated more than 220 billion yuan in additional spending on transportation and accommodation, etc., etc. So, yeah.
Yeah, the same thing is happening with museums as well. People are also traveling to a city because they want to see a particular exhibition or suddenly at the museum because the starting point of an entire week. So it's not only about theaters and stage performances, but also about museums and galleries and a lot of different cultural activities, really. For instance, my friend recently thinking about going to Hangzhou because of a certain very famous ancient painting from ancient China is on show in Hangzhou.
Oh, just one painting could be the reason for the
but
trip.
it's very, very rare, very famous, and it's the real thing. So he's seriously considering about asking for a day of leave and go to Hangzhou to see that painting.
Are you thinking now, after our chat, to get more out into the theater scene, Fei Fei?
Yeah, I'm thinking about going to the museum over the weekend. Maybe a good idea.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of influenced as well. And it doesn't mean that, we should turn this into another health hack. This study doesn't necessarily prove that buying a museum ticket or going to a theater will add years to your life, but it is another interesting way to think about healthy aging. We usually talk about things like healthy diet and exercise and sleep, so this is just a different avenue for us to explore that concept. All right, that will do it for today's Roundtable. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us today. For Yushan and Fei Fei, I'm Steve Hatherley. Enjoy your day and come back again next time.